Hello there and welcome back aboard Narrowboat Gentian. It is a glorious sunny mid-November day as I record this, but by the end of the video it might no longer be November. It could be December, or if things go really badly it might even be January. Well, how can this be, I hear you ask? Is David in fact some sort of Doctor Who character? No, strangely they haven't asked me to read for that. The reason is something altogether more down to earth. Every 4 years, boats on the inland waterway must have a boat safety scheme certificate, and mine expires on, I think it's the 1st of February. It is, of course, wise to get your new certificate done and renewed before the expiry of the old one, because as soon as it expires, your insurance is invalid, your Canal and River Trust licence is invalid, and the Marina and the CRT can tell you to get your boat out the water. That's a bad thing, so you want to do it in advance. Thus, I have booked the BSS exam for December, but I'm here now in November to do a few bits and bobs that I know are likely fail points, hopefully getting everything sorted so it just smoothly sails through in December. If it doesn't, I've then still got December and January to do any fixes that the safety examiner comes up with. Now, how do I know there are things that need doing? Because when I bought the boat, the surveyor, who is also a BSS examiner himself, noted a couple of things. He said, that will be a boat safety scheme fail. You've got to wonder, with the boat being 25 years old, and some of the things mentioned clearly look like they've been there forever, how it ever got its BSSs every 4 years up to this point. I don't know. All I know is these things were highlighted, they're things I need to fix. Fortunately, and I say this before I start fixing them, none of them too complicated. We start with a couple of items in the bow, specifically to do with the gas locker. Item number one, I am told that Jubilee clip is too long for the size of pipe that it is clipping around. Even though it is clipped tight and the gas is tight and there's no gas coming out, apparently the Jubilee clip is too big. It must be a smaller Jubilee clip. So although that's doing perfectly well, I've now got to take it off and put a smaller one on. And I'm not actually sure that the smaller one I've brought is actually any smaller. We may need to go to the shops, but let's give it a try. Yes, this is faintly annoying. There is the one I need to replace, and here is the one I bought to replace it with, and it's pretty much the same size. Now, it is specified as a 13 to 20 mil hose clamp, and I've measured this, and it's 15 mil, so it does fall within spec. But quite clearly, if I replace that with that, it's going to be exactly the same thing. So I do probably need a smaller one of those. That's a pain. Luckily, there's a chandlery not a million miles away from here, so we'll have to see if they've got one. We will move on to issue number 2, which relates to how the gas pipe comes out of the locker under there. As you can see, the gas pipe comes here through this hole, and the trouble is this hole, because if there was any leak of the gas from the gas cylinder in the locker, it could technically float its way through this hole into the well deck, and that's a no-no. The gas is supposed to be contained within the gas locker, and there are holes at the bottom of the gas locker to let escaped gas out. It can't come into the well deck and then go out of the well deck holes. So that hole needs to be sealed, and quite clearly that's original from manufacture, so it's been like that for 25 years. But there we go, I must seal that hole. To this end, I'm going to use the boater's friend, gaffer tape, to form a temporary blockage over the seal, and then smear the whole thing with silicone sealant so that it becomes blocked up. And I'll do that on both sides. First things first, and I can't really see what I'm doing. I think this needs a clean, otherwise the gaffer tape won't stick. There's a lot of spider web here. Lovely. That's boats for you. I have here some of my favourite WD-40 degreaser, and no, this is not the WD-40 WD-40, it's the WD-40 company's degreaser. It is a degreaser, it's specifically for that purpose. Not to be confused with the other stuff. And it's very good. I used it on my van build and it cleaned everything up, an absolute treat. I'm going to spray it onto some... Oh, and it stinks. I'm going to spray it onto a bit of tissue paper to start with. And now some quality boat engineering.
This is really just a placeholder, the gaffer tape. The idea is I will then stick the sealant all over it. I probably didn't need to put that much, did I? I might start it from the other side. Right, I have the Gunge Maker machine, and I have a lot of paper wipes to wipe myself with afterwards, because I'm going to end up using my fingers on this. I know I am. Is anything coming out yet? Come on. There we go. Ah, here we go. Yes, it's going to have to be the old classic finger technique. You can make your own jokes up about that if you like. Okay, that's that side done. It is very spidery in here. They're not going to be happy. Ugh, I'm having to do this one-handed. This is quite tricky. No, how's this going to... I'm not sure how this is going to work. Right, let's try and move the gas bottle a little. Will that move? A little way. That might have helped. Oh, I need to get my head in there as well, though. Oh, no, this is very awkward. Right, I'm going to have to rethink this. I need to be able to get my head in. I think the gas bottle needs to come out. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. There we go. Right, with that out the way, this can finally loosen up enough to let the gas bottle out. Oy vey! Alright, there's still a lot of gas in that. Just as an aside, it was supposed to be sunny all day today. Oh dear. Right, hopefully, if I lean into the locker, it's still bloody awkward. At least where's my arm going to go? There we go. I will squidge this and make it tidy in a minute. For now, I just want to get the sealant in there. That's probably enough. And now, for the artistic bit. If this gas pipe wasn't in the way. Move. Move. On the basis that you can never have too much gunge, I think you can get the gist of what I've done there, and I think we're going to call that sealed. Right, let's tighten this up again, and I will get my little portable gas sniffer on that once I've done that, to check it's all fully there. Feels pretty good, I think. And I've checked the hose. It has a date of 2001 on it. They have a 10-year life, and the hose seems fine, so that is good. Right, turn on gas sniffer in fresh air, allow it to sniff fresh air and determine what that smells like. Let's see if it's working. There we go. Yep, right, turn the gas on. Hold it near the source of any leaks. And I know it works because it's detected a leak in the van, it's detected other leaks. That is clearly fine, and I will use it again on the when I've replaced that Jubilee clip. However, that is going to need a shopping trip. Okay, that can just be left to dry, I think. With the bow half dealt with, some of the other things I need to do are under the deck boards at the back. There are, in particular, two aspects of the battery box I need to address. So the lid needs to come off that. Come on. And there are the batteries, which are not supposed to be able to move more than 10 millimeters in any direction. And slightly frustratingly, there is a little more than 10 mil that they could theoretically move. Furthermore, The entire battery box is supposed to be glued down so it can't move. And now I look at it, I think I can see the remains of old glue under there. So I'm going to need to pull it to one side, stick some of that Sikaflex under it and gunge it down again. Okay, just off camera there, I've lifted the battery box onto that aluminium bit there, and if I can do the same at this end, onto there, I can then just squirt some gunge underneath. I'm trying to do it without having to actually take the batteries out of the box, which would be a bit of a nuisance. So if I can just lift it up enough to squirt gunge, drop it back down on the gunge, that should hopefully be okay. Where can my foot go? My foot can go there. Right, come on you. Oh, good grief. Look at that. Not while I've got the deck boards up, for goodness sakes. Okay, that's lifted up. The battery box is now not touching the floor. So if I put the end of that sealant gunge thing under there and just squidge loads and then drop it back into place, hopefully that'll do the trick. There was sealant there before. It's obviously lost its stick. Big gunge. We're having big gunge. Battery negative could get out the way. Right, that's quite a lot of gunge. Tweak it that way a bit. Squeeze more underneath. I can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just going to put absolute tons of it down there. Under the bottom. Plop it back into place. Come on. Alright, that'll do. That's getting a bit crackers. I'll give it a little wiggle. Right, the classic finger down the edge. I'm not of an age for doing this kind of stuff. Well, that cartridge is pretty much empty now, so having used a tiny bit on the gas pipe at the front, that means most of that cartridge was emptied underneath the battery box. If that doesn't hold it, I do not know what will. There is one further thing, however, I need to do in there, and that is stop the batteries themselves moving around. And I've been umming and ahhing about how to do this, because Justin the surveyor said I could just put some chocks of wood down there between the side of the battery box and the battery, and I think that'll work for that. Now you see there's a bit of a lip on the battery, so even if I get a chunk that goes down there, there'll still be a bit of slack. And at the end you've got this whole handle that gets in the way, which has got this thing on it. So I wouldn't be able, without taking the batteries out and then putting the chocks in and then trying to drop the batteries back in between the chocks, it's all just going to be a bit fiddly. So I've come up with a cunning plan. This is my proposed solution, expanding foam. And I know what you're thinking, David, that is sticky stuff and it goes everywhere. Do you really want that just gummed up on the side of your batteries? And the answer is not really. And a viewer came up with a brilliant idea. Bags. Put a bag down the side of the battery, spray the foam into the bag, it will then contour to the shape required without actually making all the battery bay and everything too sticky. That's the theory. Let's try it out. Okay, I have a bag in there. I have shaken the can of spray foam. Now in theory, don't want to go mad because it doesn't half expand this stuff. Oh, it's so sticky. I'm a little unsure how generous to be with that. Do you know what? From the look of it, though, it has packed into that space quite well. It's about 30 seconds later. I'm slightly thinking I may have overdone it. But you know what, that's probably going to hold that stable once it's there. It's still expanding, isn't it? I'm going to have to chop this off. Otherwise the battery lid, the box lid isn't going to go back on. Oh dear. Right, take note, less foam in the next one. 2 minutes later. Yeah, this is going to need a bit of trimming. I mean, it's not a problem. It trims easy enough. Clearly expands. Do you know, I've used this stuff so many times that every time I still put too much on. I have tried to put a lot less in that one which is now starting to reach the top of its battery. Hopefully that will be less explosive.
I couldn't film, it all got a bit panicky there as the stuff kept overflowing, but I've scooped it out. It's still soft and squidgy, so I could just scoop it up with loads of tissue papers.
And now that one looks like that. So it comes up to the top of the battery and overflows a little bit, and even that one needs a little bit more taken off it.
I am idly now wondering whether I should have used the spray foam to stick the battery tray down, because even spray foam wouldn't have had the power to lift up a bank of batteries, so it would have all gone round the sides and filled every last cavity underneath there, and it is hellish sticky stuff. But we'll see. I've put the black stuff down, hopefully that'll do, the ordinary EBT sealant. And the expanding foam is continuing to expand. With those done, those are most of the big items done. There are a couple of other smaller things, but it is now just gone 1 o'clock, and to me that says it's time for a cheese roll and a cup of tea, and then I guess I need to nip over to that Chandler's. I need a little thing that says diesel, because apparently my diesel filler should be labelled diesel, even though they're all diesel. I mean, you know, anyway, it's supposed to say diesel, so I need to get something that says that. And also a new smaller Jubilee clip, and then there's a tiny bit of, I need to cut a wire behind the 12 volt switch panel, but all that I think can happen after lunch. Lunch consumed, let's go to a chandlery. I'm in the camper van today. This is my haul. I got 2 sizes of Jubilee clip just in case, although I think it's the larger one that is the correct one. And then my little diesel label, which I will stick on with the last tiny bit of that black sealant gunge, if it hasn't already gone solid in the tube. Unfortunately, they didn't have any suitable mains inlet plastic sockety things, because the cover on mine has disappeared and needs to be replaced. I'll never just get a cover, the whole thing will have to be replaced. And I was hoping they would just have one, and they didn't. They had some others, they were the wrong shape or size and this, that and the other. And the metal ones were 100 quid! 100 quid for a mains inlet socket. I'm not paying that, I'll put up with plastic, but I need to find one that's the right size. And I need to do that quickly. Anyway, now back to the marina. Back aboard, and this needs to be marked diesel apparently, even though it does say diesel tap under here. That apparently is not sufficiently adjacent to or on top of, so I'm going to put my little diesel thing and stick it there, I think, which is as close as I can get. It was either there or there, and it might as well be one or t'other. I've got my degreaser again just to clean this up a bit, and some kitchen roll to wipe it all down, so bit of that. Look, it's so good it's taking the paint off. What's the betting I don't put this completely straight, and then it will irritate me for years to come. I think it's fairly high. It doesn't need much. I'll give it just the tiniest blob. There we go. I think that'll do. Right, the gas tap on the tank is closed. There will be a little puff of gas that is in the pipes when I release this, but that will go harmlessly overboard, or so is the theory. Back in the same spot with a smaller hose clamp. Nice and tight, but not ridiculously so. Let us use the trusty gas sniffer. Turn on, prime the sniffer. Obviously you can do this with soapy water and see if there are any leaks, but I like a gas sniffer. And the gas sniffer is detecting nothing. So we'll take that as a success. This, by the way, is the electrics inlet, which is supposed to have a flip down cover over it, so that when it is not plugged in, there is a cover over here. But also, regardless of cover, you can see how the wires are not terribly well connected, and this whole blue bit is supposed to be hanging on a couple of
sticky out bits inside when it's dangling down instead. So this is rubbish. I need to swap this, but getting another box of exactly those same dimensions to fit the hole in the aluminium that is made for this, that is proving to be a little bit awkward, and I really would like one that is the same dimensions. And I don't just want to get the cover for it because, as I say, this bit in there is falling off. It's not good. So I'd like to replace the whole thing. There's one tiny tweak to do. The boat used to have an inverter, a little tiny one, the kind of thing you might have in a car and plug into the car cigarette socket, only 150 watts or such like. And it was such a small power output, they'd wired it with an earth cable just off the 12-volt battery through this cupboard here. And the positive to the inverter is this one, which just goes into the back of the switch panel. It's on a switch, so that is not live at the moment, but if I press AUX 1, that would be live, and I don't really want this dangling around. And it was one of the BSS points that the inverter was just sitting in this shelf space, effectively unprotected from things shorting across the terminals. But I've taken the inverter out, I don't need it, and so I just want to take this wire off the back of this panel, and the only way to get into that panel, I think, is to unscrew the whole thing and bring it very carefully out. I'm hoping that Sea Otter left lots of lovely slack on all the wiring so it comes out with access to spare, but you never know, do you? Right, there's one screw. Let's not lose the screws also. That would be fairly typical. Here's what we're looking at. You can see the red wire comes round there and just goes onto a push-on terminal, so I'll just take that off and that will then be gone. No more a problem. I need wire cutters. That's what I need. Did I bring my wire cutters? Actually, I haven't seen my wire cutters in a very long time. After some unspeakable brute force, which I did not want to show you because no doubt you are of a sensitive disposition, I have this one released, which means I can pull that one through. The wire is released. Good, done, taken away, no more to be a bother. And that is the end of it for today. All 4 screws are back in. That's everything done, barring that electrical inlet socket, which I will try to have to sort before the BSS exam. So the next bit of filming will probably be me trying to sort that. If not, it'll probably be the BSS, unless the man from the BSS doesn't want to be filmed, in which case it'll be me talking about whatever happened as a result of it. I don't know, it's an exciting mystery, isn't it? Stand by. Just a little note that I wasn't expecting to do. The foam in a bag experiment has failed. Look, the stuff at the top, which could see the air, has solidified. But the stuff further down has just... I mean, it's liquid and there's nothing of it. So that wasn't going to hold anything. Again, solid at the top, just empty air bag at the bottom. So the idea of containing it hasn't worked. I either need to squirt foam directly down to the batteries or go with the wooden chocks idea that was the starting idea. Blast. It is now November the 30th, Sunday, November the 30th, and I'm back aboard the boat to try to do the final 2 bits that need sorting out before the boat safety test is done in, it's about a week and a half's time. I brought some chunks of wood to try to bolster the batteries so they can't move more than their permitted 10mm. If you're in America, that's just over 1/3 of an inch, I think. 10mm, yeah, about just over 1/3 of an inch. They mustn't have more movement than that. So I just brought spare chunks of wood. I've been told that's okay. If I put them round the batteries and they can't move, then they should be okay. And then the other thing is, I bought a new mains inlet socket, which actually has a lid on it, and there's the thing which I'll need to wire up onto the existing mains connector. In theory, straightforward. Let's hope. Now then, as a reminder to myself, we've got that gap, which needs filling, and then there's also a little space on the other side over there. Conceivably, I may need to put something down that end as well, next to the engine starter battery. Plus, of course, something down that end.
So I think a bit of tape measuring may be needed. Well, it's not terribly pretty, just shoving bits of wood down there, and I'm surprised that wood is allowed, actually. You'd think, I don't know, batteries, wood, potential fire, I don't know. But apparently, batteries are allowed to be chopped with chunks of wood, so that is now very solidly not going that way, and it's only got a millimetre or two of travel that way. So I think that'll have to do, unless the BSS man says otherwise. This end, I've decided, although it looks like there's a gap, I've tried wiggling that battery and it will not move. I think the corners of the battery box mean that it has no further movement in it, or the lip at the bottom of the battery means it won't go any further that way. Either way, it's fine. So now the next thing to do is take this box off and put a replacement one in. I was rather hoping there'd be a bit more slack on this, so I could pull it through better than it was before. There's a tiny bit, but that seems to be the extent of it. I don't want to pull it too hard, it's pulling on the other end somewhere. Anyway, we'll have a go. First problem, the new little washer thing here. The hole in it isn't quite big enough to go over this thick coating, so I'm going to have to drill it out a tiny bit. I've tried squishing it, I've tried squeezing it, it just will not go. So I'm going to have to drill that out a tiny bit. Did I bring my drills? No. I do have a hand file, which may have to do. Right, I've cleaned that up a tiny bit. I'll do a little bit more, then I will fit it over the wire. Now we kind of have the same situation again, in that this bung is supposed to go in there with the wire coming through it, but as you can see there's no hole. You have to make a hole. Now I haven't got my drill bits with me, so I may need to brutalise this, or possibly take the one off the old one. Well, I didn't have my drills, but I did have my drill bits, and with it being soft plastic, I just wound them manually with my hand through that, so it now fits over this. Now I've just got to put that into this bit and then wire it all up. We have an issue here, which is that the last tiny screw holding the live wouldn't finish its travel. It just kept turning and turning and turning, and it ends up it was chewing up the end of the live cable, and I'm not happy about that. And I think the previous socket is better constructed with better screws, so in fact I'm going to scrap that. They're all the same size. Put this one back on in that one's place. Unfortunately, that is now ruined, and I don't have my cable strippers with me to strip a bit of that back, so I'm going to have to do it the clunky way using a knife, and just be careful. This is all a bit rubbish. Joy of joys! I found my wire cutters and the sheath cable cutter things that trim the plastic sheathing off. Brilliant! I now have new ends on the cable. The trouble with all this is because there's no slack left in this cable, I've got very limited amount to work with. Can't just pull it through and trim it off and keep doing this. Got to hope for the best. Unbelievably, and after a lot of swearing,
it really didn't want to go back. There was so little slack on that lead, and everything conspired against me. Really, it needs a complete rewire of that mains lead. But anyway, it's back in. I just need to screw the screws in now. And look, there's only been one major disaster when I caught my thumb in the wire stripper. Anyway, this thing, I caught it in those jaws as I was stripping the wires. So there's blood everywhere. But we got there. Well, there we go for the moment. It's plugged in and it's working. And it has its little weather thing over. What a faff! What a massive faff just to put a little rain cover over the inlet socket. But the previous wiring was terrible. It is now Wednesday, December the 10th. The boat safety examiner is due to come in about 50 minutes' time at 1 o'clock. I think the whole thing takes about 2 hours. I will update you on the result in a moment. The man with his head in the gas locker is Alan Buckle, historic boat owner and boat safety scheme examiner. He has a checklist of items to work through, including aspects such as gas safety, fire safety, the diesel fuel system and the electrical systems. Here he's looking at the propane tank in the gas locker, checking the hoses and connections as I've already shown. There are checks both outside and inside the boat. Here he's looking at how the gas supply pipes feed to the cooker and the heater. There are regulations about what type of pipe is used, how it's connected and such like. It involves a lot of sticking your head into things with a torch. And in the engine bay he's peering at the diesel tank and yes, the battery bank as well. It's all very thorough. But what was the result? Well, he's been and gone, and horror of horrors, the boat has failed. Except it hasn't. It has passed. There was a failure, but luckily it was so minor that I was able to fix it while it was here and then get a pass. In the engine bay, there's some fuel cables, and just the ends on a junction of the fuel cables, the ends of the fuel pipe were frayed. The pipe itself, absolutely fine, but the end of the pipe frayed. Luckily, there was quite a bit of spare pipe, so by just chopping off the frayed end, unscrewing a Jubilee clip, chopping off the frayed end and then pushing the pipe back on again, absolutely back to normal. And I've got the ends here. I'll put in a little close-up of these bits so you can see them properly, but you can really see how frayed those were. And ultimately he was saying if they'd continued fraying, the crack would have extended down the pipe, and then that would have started spewing fuel from the pipe, and the engine would have conked out and air would have got in. So definitely worth having that highlighted, and you can really see on close-up how bad those are. But anyway, chopped it off, put the pipe back on, it's all tight, it's all good. So Gentian now has a brand new boat safety scheme certificate right through until the year 2030, and I can't tell you what a relief that is. Thank you very much for watching. Cheerio.